Hello and welcome to Nonic Nonsense, a show where mom is by herself today. Yes, Michael Matadomini is sick today, so I will be hosting solely. And today's guest is one of the people that I've known for so many fucking years. It's disgusting when I actually think about like how long we've known each other.
Yeah.
he's he's the education director at Pensacola Little Theater. He is a long-term member of Improbable Cause, actor, singer, does it all. It's Topher Warren.
Hey, it's me.
How
Yeah,
you doing, fucker?
I'm good, man. I'm good. What's up, wife? Sorry, my wife's also in the studio. She's not, but she's in the room. So,
Hi, wife.
um, yeah, dude, thanks for having me. I've been trying to set this up for a while with you so we could shoot the shit and talk all theater things.
I know, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But okay, so to get started, the general question that I love to ask everyone: how did you get into theater? How did you
Oh
get the bug?
God. There's like a two-parter to this story. One is like I suffered from really bad like ADHD as a kid, which is
Mm-hmm.
probably no shocker to you at all. Um, but uh, yeah, mom signed me up for theater camps and theater classes at PLT when I was like 7, and just fell in love with the idea of creating and storytelling and all that fun stuff. And that's kind of what I guess sparked the bug. I also grew up in a very religious household, and so our church also had like theater uh, things where you could do Christmassy pageants and stuff. Um, yeah, so that's kind of like got bit by the bug. My very first show I ever did was in 2001 when I was 9. I did Stone Soup,
A classic. A
a
classic.
classic. And so, yeah, after that, it's been kind of smooth sailing. I'd say smooth sailing in a very fun way because, as we all know, the life of pursuing professional acting is not smooth sailing at
Absolutely
all.
fuck not.
Yeah. Yeah.
we we met. When the fuck did we meet?
2013.
Holy
And I
sh-
only know this because it was when I was directing title of show is
yes. Okay.
yes. And we at the time I was assistant directing title of show, and then it later became my show when the director left. Um, but yes,
Teeth.
that's listen, love the man to death. He needed to do what he needed to do. And then we met, I guess, the following fall when I joined your class at UWF in the BFA program.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
UWF. What a time.
what a time.
Listen, I love to talk trash about like theater school, but I did love my time at UWF.
Oh, same.
We're definitely trauma bonded. In a
Our
way
our
that
our class in particular trauma bonded real hard. Even if I don't talk to all of them all like consistently,
yeah.
we're there for each other in that regard.
Yeah, it's honestly disgusting how
Yeah.
how we can like not talk to each other for periods of time and then we come back and it's like nothing has changed and like it's just back to like the usual nonsense with us.
Oh, sure. We pick up right where we left off.
Yeah, yeah.
I think my favorite thing about it is like when my wife was first learning, like who all my friends are, she would refer to you as like, "Oh, Kat, that's the girl who calls in once a year to make sure you're not dead." Um, so things like that. I'm like, yeah, there's a level of trauma bonding that is clicked with that to make sure is Topher still alive? Did he? Are you good, boo boo? And so,
Listen, you disappear into the ethos every once in a while and like I've got to like make sure you're okay. Let me just also say it's because our senior year was the most we were so dysfunctional at different times
sure.
where we both had to kind of like You were more dysfunctional on the first half, and I
Yeah.
was more dysfunctional in the second half. And we had to just kind of like yank each other through to graduation.
I hate that that's so accurate, but it is so accurate. Yeah, the first half of that senior year was just like, well, one, I have to also preface too, like we had just also gotten a brand new professor, two brand new professors, as our
Mm-hmm.
two main professors have left, and
No, wasn't it three?
probably Sam and Chris left, and then we got Sarah and Marcy, and oh, three. Actually, we got Sam, Marcy, and Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was one. I also feel like as a
Wait, wasn't
junior,
Corey that year too? Or was Corey the year before?
Corey.
Vocals?
Oh, cool. Oh my God, we have four new teachers that year. Okay, so yeah, four because Howard was my junior year as well. Yeah. So point being, we had a lot of new people. It was one new methodology of their teaching style.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I came from a very small junior college and transferring into a university level, and it
Yeah,
was
because you were at PSC, right?
correct.
And
And
they
so
had good people there.
they did. I think the problem was like because it's a even smaller college. I came in out of that college like being like, all right, this is my type and this is what I do, and I am a baritone who plays the villains, and that is obviously not who I am at all as a type. And so I
Yeah.
came into that was my junior year was just a lot of struggle with that of finding who I am as an artist, finding out what I want to do as an artist. And then senior year, we just had new professors, and it just threw me for a whirlwind where I I don't want to say like I stopped caring, but it was more like I felt like I nothing I was doing was going to make sense or do it
Yeah.
well. And so it was just, listen, man, I'm just paddling to keep my head above water,
Yeah.
and then I finally caught on and was like, second half, got it. Like was figuring things out, was doing the right things, was putting in a lot more work.
Yeah.
And that's where I think Cat Gold senioritis kicked in. Of like, man, graduation's around the corner. We just got to get there.
It was just like I think it was the loss of our friend.
Yeah, yeah,
It was definitely senioritis as well. It was just this a cacophony of things happening all at the same time, and you know we
yeah.
made it.
We did, man. But it's really fun to look back on like our class because I feel like our class was a really strong BFA class at our university in particular.
Yes,
Yeah,
I mean,
not that others aren't, but like our collectively, we had very unique performers that also all do different things, and um,
yeah.
everyone's been pretty successful for the most part post college,
Hmm.
at least in whatever the desire of the arts they wanted to do.
Yeah, I think this is so I joke about it now, but like I was the only person I think in our BFA class that didn't have a job out of college.
Yeah, that I yeah, like pretty much. Yeah, I think you were the one that didn't have something immediately. Which now I laugh though because you are the one that once you started working, you've been pretty damn consistent with booking things for the most part to the next thing. Even if there's small gaps of time between, you're
Yeah.
always looking forward to the next thing. Whereas
Yeah.
I had a gig right out of college. I've had a nice, 12-month contract that turns to an 18-month contract. But then after
We
that, it was like, what do I do now? And I moved to a new city to start all over again. And
we got to talk about Missoula Children's Theater. You have to tell me.
I
Okay,
can tell you all the things of Missoula Children's Theater.
I feel like Missoula Children's Theater is like a certain, because we always joke about non-ec nonsense and the things that happen in non-ec theater, but I feel like
Oh,
Missoula
that
Children's Theater is a certain like is a certain it's its own little trauma bonding experience with the people that are
oh
members of that. So
yeah.
talk me through, because like I had gotten callbacks for them, but I don't vroom
Yeah.
vroom
I remember that being is
regularly.
that you don't drop regularly, and that's half the gig.
Yeah. So they were like, no, you have to vroom vroom. And that's not me. But please tell me about the Missoula
and
Children's Theater
and
experience.
and listen, let me first say, like MCT, I got big love for them. Amy Ellis, all the home staff. I love this crew. They're great.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Now, MCT though, it's an amazing organization. It's super great. It was a great company to work for. The pay was pretty solid, and for like a 22-year-old kid right out of college, it was great. And
Yeah.
um, a big thing for me was like I wanted to travel and I wanted to see. I also wasn't like the national tour life was not something that I figured I would ever get into. And so I was like, well, this would be a chance to travel and perform and do all those fun things. Uh, However, I guess I went in right into Missoula with the headspace of like, oh, I'm performing for kids. No. I mean, yes, but no. You are performing with kids. And so that for me was probably the biggest culture shock jumping into an organization like that, where you're the whole bit is that you are going to a new town every single week. You arrive on a Sunday. On Monday, you have auditions, and then your performance is on Friday or Saturday or both. Um, and that's what I did for 18 months. And it was wild. I did the same show for a year. I did The Princess and the Pea, and then I did a little under 6 months doing The Tortoise versus the Hare. So they're also like their original plays that are inspired by other shows, I guess, for copyright
Copyright.
things and making sure they don't get sued. And plus Michael, who was at the time was the CEO, he did a lot of the writing for the music, and it actually wasn't terrible music. It was actually very easily pickable. Like it was able to be quickly picked up by kids.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we had 64 kids at a max in every town, and I had
That
some
is fucking crazy.
wild, right? And but I will say the thing that they do well with children's theater there is a science to it that they have mastered, and it is a here's how you can rehearse in 4 days or 5 days, and the kids learn their parts, and it's um thankfully I do a lot of improv, and so that was helpful. But one of so you're when you join the company, you get assigned with a tour partner, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just the two of you for like however long the contract is. Mine was a little different because me and my first tour partner, um, we were just two very different individuals, and we I think because of that, we just did not get along in the way I think that a lot of tour partners get along. And so for us, there was just always a little bit of like a disconnect. And so we did half our tour together, and then we actually swapped tour partners. And so there was another team that we just basically took the guys and just swapped the guys. Um, but one person is directing the show for the week, and then the other person is the lead. But the lead of all these shows are essentially the narrator, so that you can just shove yourself into scenes as things get wild. Um,
You
yeah.
have to tell me. I need to hear some of these horror stories from this experience.
Uh, the first couple that come to mind. Um, the I won't say it was like the worst week we had the entire tour, but it was definitely the most interesting. Um, so again, the max is 64 kids, and that's 60 students and then four assistant directors, which really are just there to help run lines with kids as they're not performing.
Yeah, yeah.
But we were on in addition to cities, you also will go to certain military bases. That's a part of it too. They have contracts. And so I was at the Norfolk Naval Base. And I think at the time we had like 12 kids only for this 60 plus person show. And so you just have to learn how to finagle the show in a way that works. And so instead of having 10 villagers, we have one villager. And this person has just loaded with lines. And all the kids were probably like 9 and under. And so I knew I was like, that's a week, and I was performing that week, and I was like, this is going to be like the Topher Warren show of I'm going to be doing 55 minutes of dialogue, and these
Mm-hmm.
kids are going to do 5 minutes. And that's it, and that's exactly what it was. So that's probably the biggest horror story in terms of performance. Other horror stories we had were some of the housing we stayed at. So when you're in Missoula, you either stay in hotels or homestays. So like you might get stayed with like, yo, we got this nice family that's willing to give you their 2 spare bedrooms, which some of them are great. And there's some of the people that I stayed with that I still keep in contact with almost 10
Mm-hmm.
years later. Um, but we were in one town in New Mexico, and I have a lot of beef with New Mexico. New Mexico, because of this tour, is one of my least favorite states in the world. So anybody listening is from New Mexico, I apologize. Send me locations of somewhere better to go. In that state. But the house that we were staying at, it was like a rental house, and they had mice all inside the house. And we were there for like 3 days, just having mice in all of our stuff, and we were doing laundry, and like as soon as we opened the door for like the laundry machine, like mice would come out, and so
Oh my fucking God. That is a
right,
horror
it
movie.
took it took like 3 days of uh getting and complaining to like the contact persons at town, like, hey man, we got mice, and eventually they put us in a hotel for the rest of it. But
Oh my God.
like I said, there's so many easy stories of horror stories like that, but truly it was a great company to work for, and I learned a lot about myself. I really think that's what sparked a huge love for teaching, and that's kind of how I
Hmm.
transitioned to my current job. um, and like I said, I got to see a lot of parts of the country that I would have never seen. I mean, I was in Canada for like 3.5 months, and I was in Wyoming and obviously Montana and the Dakotas, which are the Dakotas. And there's some states I'm just like, listen, man, I love it more because I think those are the towns that they don't get a lot of theater. And so for some of these kids, like Missoula Children's Theater, 1 week out of the year is all they get. And so like those weeks are
Yeah.
super special. But man, some of your towns need like a Chili's in it or something, you know?
Oh my, that is so fucking true. Let me just say, we were in Bennington, Vermont, which is not like a massive place.
Sure.
This for the Disenchanted tour, the town was so excited that we were there. Like we were fully sold out like for weeks.
Mm.
Weeks. And so like as soon as we showed up, everyone was like, "Oh, it's the princess." They so thrilled about having theater. Small towns, like it's
Yeah.
wild the reaction. Oh my
Which makes
goodness.
me feel like it's probably not that same extreme of Pensacola, but sometimes people do that though with like the Sanger. They're like, oh, the regional theater is coming. It's so
Well, Pensacola is an interesting place because it's such it it's like Bible Belt right near that like Floribama kind of, it's like a very military area, but then there's like this group of like crazy performers that like came out
mm-hmm.
of that area.
I mean, yeah, you're looking at like Katie Mixon, who is in Four Christmases. You have Allison Bailey, who was just on the tour with and Broadway with Wicked as the
Yeah.
understudy for Glinda. We have Ashley Brown, who originated Mary Poppins, and
And she's going to be an elf this winter,
yeah,
yeah, on
and
Broadway, yeah.
so if they obviously there's a talent pool that gets breeded here that does produce some high quality stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I often, I mean, you and I've been in shows too, where like we have heard people say like, this is better than some of the Broadway shows we've seen and things like that for certain productions and things like that. So yeah, there definitely is a great quality level that's here, that you wouldn't imagine in I'll say either a very large town or a very small city of Pensacola.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah,
It's so interesting, but I just kind of want to backtrack just a hair.
do it,
So
do it.
because we were talking about like Missoula, you got that through Unifieds, right?
I got through SETC. Yeah,
Please talk about your Unified experience. It's the most twisted
it's
experience, and like I just say this because we do have some like high schoolers like doing like the college audition thing and some college students like that do listen
yeah,
in. I would just love to hear it from your end. I've kind of spoke about it
sure.
from my end, but
Well, college kids, grab a pen and some paper, buckle in. Let me tell you the real tea. Um, no, I think unifieds are great. I think there's some really good stuff you can do with it. The My experience. That's I guess I just share with my experience with it. Uh, so I auditioned at back in the day when we would go down to Gainesville and we would audition at the Florida Theater Conference through like Santa
mm-hmm.
Fe Community College, and which now it's all different. But it was
Yeah.
like you had to do a preliminary round of auditioning, and so we would UWF students would just all hike in a little car and we'd all drive down there together and probably buy the cheapest like $60 motel that we could all stay in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then yeah, you audition for these three adjudicators that basically tell you, yes, you're ready to do professional work, or no, we don't think this is your time. Which that in itself I always hated because I'm like, that's let the people doing the hiring for the jobs make that decision for me.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so I got passed on to UPTA's as well as SCTC. UPTAS was through separate. That was a video audition, but got passed on
Hmm.
to the Southeastern Theater Conference, um, which for any of the high schoolers listening, like they do that every year, and it's in like 4 to 5 like rotating cities, like Greensboro, North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky, Mobile, Alabama. And it's primarily companies within the Southeast, but there are some exceptions, like Missoula, which is based in Montana, so that obviously is not in the Southeast. Yeah, and so once you get passed on, which I think there was like 20 of us that auditioned, and like 6 of us got passed on, I think. Um,
Something like that. I don't.
I remember that year I was the only guy that got passed on from our college, which was very strange.
Are you sure? Because I feel like Jared went both years.
Jared, Jared went with me, but he didn't do it for auditioning. He did it for tech. I think the year that I went. I could be
Oh.
mistaken. Jared Gibson, if you're listening, call me out of my bullshit if I'm wrong.
No, I could no, I only remember because Jared and I, because we have last names that start with G, and we would
Oh,
always
sure,
wear
sure.
purple. We were usually in the same like um
Flight,
yeah.
your heat. Yeah, because I remember my senior year, me, Jared, and Tyler Frere all stayed in like a small little microtel together that had 2 beds and like a windowsill bed, and that's what
Hmm.
Jared slept on. Uh, but yes, once you get to SCTC, you find out the dates, you have to register for it. And the hard part with those, like you also have to you have to pay, which is kind of the hard part, but it's like $200 or whatever it was to attend the conference. And then they have some great workshops. So if you're a high school student in particular going, that's a great opportunity to take some workshops for some growth. When you're doing kind of what like you and I were doing at SCTCs and at UPDOs and things like that, like we didn't really have time to attend those things because
Yeah.
you got assigned to a heat, like whatever number you were. And I
Yeah.
think my first year or my senior year when I went, which was the big year, like I was number like 200 and something, and I was still seen on the first day, which I I wish I could tell everyone listening like that this is how you get assigned what number, but like I generally don't know. I think it's just random, and
Yeah.
I got the luck of the draw. I think for that one that I was on the
Yeah.
first day. Um, so yeah, you create an audition package, which is where like your rep book comes in handy, and it's basically like you have if you're doing acting, I believe you get like 1 minute to do a monologue or two. But it's like a 1 minute package. And if you're doing musical theater, you got 90 seconds. And it was, you had to do a monologue and a song. And so that's
Hmm.
what I did. I remember I sang My Friends from by Sweeney Todd as the song. And knowing well in advance, like all these Disney companies are not going to hire me, which that's fine. Sorry, Disney, you missed out. Yeah. And then once you get passed on through that and you do your heat, you kind of wait like an hour or two until there's like a whole separate room in the hotel or the conference center where this is at that has every company. And basically, all they do is just put your number down if they want to see you again. And some of
Hmm.
them are great where it's, you know, you get to go into it sounds a little sketchy when I say it this way, where it's like, and then you go into a private hotel room where it's just you and the audition person, which makes it
Creepiest
sound,
thing.
it
It
does. It
is.
sounds like and I slept my way to the top, but that's not at all it. It was just, you, every company is basically assigned like a hotel room, and most of them have like moved the beds. And so it's just an open
Thank
space where you can,
God. Because
could you
I
imagine
so I think when not at SETC but at NETC there was definitely some that had
beds?
beds, and
Yes.
I was like,
Updas was the exact same way. It was just,
yeah,
um,
I got waitlisted for UPDAs, and I was like, and they I don't know what it was. It was like I was not very far on the waitlist thing, but I was just like, I don't even fucking
well,
care.
and Updas is one of those like, and maybe they've changed. So, like I said, if you haven't done it before and you're looking into it, like check it out. But when I did it, like I did SETC first and was already getting offers, and then Updas actually ended up being like a lot of the same companies that I already saw at SETC, and
Yeah.
so I feel like I went, and when I went to SETC, like I was very fortunate. One as a guy, which I just recognize as a guy in musical theater, but like I probably got like 30 something callbacks for different companies.
Yeah.
Whereas at Updas, I got three. And so, you know, um, but yeah, once you do your callback, some of them are great where they want you to do your audition piece again. Some ask for me to do different stuff. So they'll actually like, look at my rep book and see what I had. And then some are just drop off your resume and your headshot. And then we played the fun waiting game, right? Drove back to Pensacola and we waited like a month and a half, and I was sure I was going to be jobless coming out of college. And then old Missoula Children's Theater contacted me and they offered me a full year, which was like the big deciding factor was
Yeah.
I'm going to have a job for a year. Um,
Yeah.
and then I got the job offer from Shenandoah, which was
Hmm.
super sad because I had to decline that one because of already accepting my contract, but was then later able to work with Shenandoah later. And so it ended up full circling coming back around. And so it was a good time.
There you go. Yeah,
That's
no.
that's SETC in a nutshell. Those
Do you
cattle
do
call
you did
auditions.
you have any like weird ass like moments during SETC or UPDAs and
Um,
stuff?
yes, and I will name drop this company because I'm confident I will never work for them because I'm sure they do not want to work with me. Uh, but there's a wonderful company called Sight and Sound, which is
Oh,
you don't have to listen. It's a big Jesus company.
they're
And
not listening to this podcast. You
no,
can
not absolutely not. They're a lot. There's like they're in Branson, Missouri, and they're in a couple different spots. But it's this large musical theater company that has, for some odd reason, like $1 billion budgets.
so much fucking money.
And
It's ungodly amount of money for theater.
right, they did like the play Esther, and they had like a live elephant on stage and things like that. So in theory, I was like, this company would be sick because their pay is super high. And I just when I got weird vibes from the get go, just because it was as someone who was a former Christian that also just like is now in his weird like I don't know what I believe and I'm just figuring my life out now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like that was a weird thing, but also I could not read biblical scripts without doing an accent for some reason. Like it was every time I would do it, like it wasn't British, but it was like a weird like if British in the Midwest had a baby, and they kept saying the whole time like, "Hey, can you just don't do an accent?" And I'd be like, "Okay, got it." And then doing it with the same accent would come out, and that was the first time I've ever walked out of an audition and went, "Yeah." It's not even like me playing the waiting game. Like I know I did not book that. It is done.
Yeah, no.
Um,
So I got a call back for them as well. And so they asked me to go to the dance call or whatever. And
yeah.
so which I was like,
Oh, speaking of which, hold on, let's backtrack here real quick. Young listeners. In addition to your audition, you might get called back for a dance call. And if you're people like me and Kat who are just like, we're here for the vibes. And like I would say both of us are dancers, but we're not like and I don't want to speak for you. I am not a dancer. Um, but
yeah.
I can move well and there was, there's I am able to do and keep up.
Yeah,
But
I like to joke and call myself a singer actor stander, but you know, I can do a couple, you know.
but
I
they
can
label
give
it
you a single.
sure, but they label it weird. But they're like, well, we want to see you in like the tap intermediate class, or we want to see you in the ballet advanced, or things like that. Like it was like you had to pick which dance you went to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the company I was coming for was like the Orlando Shakespeare Company, who wanted like intermediate ballet, and I was like, yeah, nah, this.
Yeah, no, I know. They call me back for it was for some musical theater. It was some You Can't Stop the Beat shit. So it
Okay,
was just like fast musical theater, whatever. Which I was like fast. I was like anyway. But so when I was auditioning, I was wearing a long sleeve blue dress that was like my at that point was my audition dress because,
the blue dress.
at least it wasn't the purple one. I did wear the
That's
purple
fair.
one for the long time, but the I switched to the blue dress because I have tattoos like on my
Fair.
arms. And so I
Same,
was
same.
like, I was like, oh well, they always wanted me to wear a fucking bolero or something with sleeves on like my dress prior, and I was like, I'm just gonna get a dress with long sleeves. I'm gonna call it a day, because
Yeah,
this was like the peak time of like musical theater. The
sure,
jewel
sure.
tone dresses and the fucking nude pumps from Target. It was very much that era. So I had my jewel tone dress, long sleeve with my nude pumps, or like I think I wore black because I was edgy. Um,
So
so
edgy.
I was wearing this long sleeve dress, and I think they thought I was, oh, she must be conservative. And so then they called me
Little do
back
they know.
to the dance call, and I'm wearing like this because I'm like, oh, it's a dance call. You wear dance attire. So I wear a short black skirt. I wear tights. I wear a blue top that's the same color. But because we're dancing, my arms are out. As soon as they looked around, they were like, I saw them in their section, and they looked around the room, and they looked at me, and then they looked at my arms, and then like they moved the paper, and I went, and now I'm trapped here, and now I'm
Right,
trapped.
right. And there's no leaving. And
Yeah.
they and dance calls, they constantly are like, hey, middle line move forward, back line moves to middle. Like, so it's
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah,
So
buckle
I'm
in,
dancing
sis,
for no one. Cool, 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 cool.
for
Yeah, no,
for
really.
45 minutes.
So I was like, I'm really feeling the love right now.
And
Anyway,
I never understood it because I in my entire career I've always played either like comedic relief or like leading character actor. Man, like that's like
yeah,
like I am a walking Shrek. Like that is just who I am. And the
I
fact that
wasn't
the
gonna say
only
that.
but
Jeez.
the only company that called me back was a Shakespeare company for a dance call. It made no sense to me. It was good old SCTC, man.
It
But
was
yeah,
it was wild. Some of the companies they would call you back and you're like, why the fuck am I here? Like I remember getting called back for like the Lost Colony and stuff, and I was like,
yeah.
what?
Horn in the West, it was very interesting because it was all, in particular, like men of like uh who were definitely more ethnic than I was. That were, but I'm sure to play the more indigenous characters of that show specifically. And then there was me, this very tall, pale ginger that's just here for a good vibe, and that was not the right fit at that time. So
Yeah, no. So definitely some interesting. I remember at like at any NETC, I think it was when I was like it was a company that I went in, I got a call back for, and they were doing Avenue Q. And so my brain was like, obviously they're calling me in for like this part. Like they had multiple shows in the season, but I was like, obviously
sure.
they're calling me in for, either like a Kate cover or like Christmas Eve because of my ethnic background. And then they were also doing like In the Heights and like try to call me back. And I was like, I'm good. I'm so good. Like, no thank you.
Yeah, avoid that like the plague.
I was like, I am so good. Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, babes. I'm gonna head
Love the
out.
show, not for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go now. But moving forward, so like after you suffer through Missoula Children's Theater, I joke. You suffer. It was
Yes.
just it was a very you were there for 18 months. That's like a long.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it wasn't supposed to be that long initially. It was I did a year. And then at the time, I was dating somebody that also worked for the company, and her and I were like, "Yo, maybe we'll get partnered together, and we'll
Mhm.
do it. We'll do a whole nother year." And obviously, we did not. We did actually didn't get partnered together, and so then we both were just like, "We're going to do another 6 months, and then save some money, move to Atlanta, and then
Yeah.
that's how I ended up in Atlanta for God knows how long." So
And you were doing a lot of improv stuff in Atlanta. Like, what
yeah,
is your like? How exactly did you get into like improv specifically?
so good question. I honestly I met people doing improv and or not even doing improv. Like I used to go to so Improbable Cause. For those of you who aren't in Pensacola, is like the only professional improv company in Pensacola, and we used to perform at this old rundown movie theater called the Silver Screen that probably
Recipes to
had
Silver Screen.
RIP. It was so good. They played like old vintage movies and like indie films that were like $2 to get in. It was so great. Um, but I used to go in high school and in early college, like I would go just to watch them perform. They were, I guess at that time, were relatively like 3 or 4 years in. They were fairly new.
Mhm.
It was just mesmerized by how funny these guys were, and I wanted to. I was like, listen, I like to think I'm funny. Like I can do this. And then yeah, I met one of the guys in the troupe, and he got me at the time. It was not like an invite to be in the company, but it was an invite to rehearse with the company. And so then I started rehearsing for about a year with them where I wasn't performing, I wasn't doing shows. Um, I was kind of like a lackey for a while where it was like you would go and you'd run the tickets for the show or you would help sell concessions. And that was how you kind of worked your way up. in
Yeah.
2013, 2012, somewhere around there, I started then rehearsing and performing. And I would do like one show every like 3 or 4 months. And then slowly just started playing more. And that's how I got involved into that. Uh, in 2017, when I moved to Atlanta, uh, we just had friends of a friend who knew some people that, hey, they're always looking for people in Atlanta in particular. I'm sure like Chicago, New York are kind of like this too with bigger improv scenes.
Yeah.
The way to get in is much different. It's not like, hey, can I join the troupe? And then you just audition and get in. Like for some of the companies like Dad's Garage, like I was taking like level one classes and kind of starting over. And
Yeah.
one, I guess it shows like the commitment level you're interested in, but it was a lot of getting to know people, learning how they like their, even though I guess it's kind of like theater in general, like even though all of us are studying the same art form, like everyone's style is a little different and how that company works. And so, uh, yeah, man. And then especially like when COVID hit, like improv saved my butt a lot because I was living very paycheck to paycheck during COVID, and obviously I was working in a first responder setting where I was working in food and like the food industry, and so but that wasn't paying the bills, so I was able to do like outdoor improv or. We
Hmm.
even did like Zoom improv, which if you've ever heard of that, it's terrible.
I did Zoom improv for, I was during peak COVID, it was, where
Yeah,
no theater was happening, but things were starting to happen, I guess, in like the end of 2020, like the beginning of 2021, it was something like that. And like
sure.
there was a company that was doing some like fucking murder mystery shit. And so they were like, we're gonna do Zoom improv with like fucking 10 people. And I was like, I'm going to throw myself through the window. So
Now,
tell me about doing it on a
well,
professional
and
level.
I'll say there's for anybody from Atlanta that's listening, we did a thing called Mining for Gold, which is run by a gentleman named Aaron Shore, who I will give him all the credit in the world because he he was very involved in improv in Atlanta, and when all the big theaters shut down, he was not going to accept no as an answer, and was like, well, if they're going to shut down, like we're still going to make art, and he
Mm-hmm.
literally started a platform where just professional improvisers and even amateur improvisers of Atlanta we could meet and just it was basically like doing like a jam session with he'd put us into little mini groups on Zoom and then we'd rehearse. And like that was so much fun. The only time improv via Zoom was awful was like when I did it for like a professional company where it's like we're trying to do a short form show, but with Zoom and it's I mean I'm you get it like it's when you take the physical like the physicality out of it, it destroys everything you're doing. And so
Yeah.
dark times in improv. But then I moved back to Pensacola and we have a theory of like once you're an improbable cause, you're kind of always an improbable cause. So
Mm-hmm.
I was able to pick back up. The company has changed drastically. There's new leadership. We're a smaller troop. There's 8 of us currently as in total. Um, but we're like a small family. Like we hang out. These are people I spend my time with in my free time. They're people that do theater in addition to improv. There's people who don't do theater in addition to improv, and so it's yeah,
Yeah, no.
improv man.
You have like long ties with PLT.
I do.
What
It's
did it start with Improbable Cause, your ties to PLT?
no that my ties with PLT started back when I was a kid, taking
Oh wow.
classes and taking camps and like I said, so Stone Soup that I did my very first show that was at PLT.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
right, we when I first started working at PLT, I found through our archives the old VHS for all my youngins out there of the performance on VHS, which is wild.
Did you
Um,
watch it? Do you have clips?
I don't because I don't own a VHS player anymore, so it's my goal this year is to find someone who could maybe convert that into like an MOV file or something that we can. I'll send you a copy if I ever find it.
That is
It
crazy.
little 9 year old Toph
But yeah, so
back when I yeah
you started with classes there, and now you're the head of the education
right
department.
and now I teach classes and hire teachers who teach this. Right, it's a very weird full circle moment. Um, like I said earlier, like education was never something that was on my radar of like what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you and I were at UWF together, it was like, dude, I'm going to be a performer. That's all I want to do, and it's still at my core is what I do. It's what I love doing the most.
Yeah.
But uh, yeah, a position opened up to the education director, who was a friend of, not was, is a friend of mine. And he was stepping back to go and move to be with
Hmm.
his partner at the time. And so, uh, yeah, just a position opened up. I applied for it, got it. And it's been a really long 3.5 years of growth and just shaping and transforming this program. And also, like I said, teaching, which is weird, uh, that students are listening to what I have to say, because on one hand, I know I'm very knowledgeable, but on the other hand, I also know that I'm me, and so I'm like, why would you listen to anything that I have to say? But um, it's been cool, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's so crazy that like now, like especially like remembering back to like college, that now your teacher, Topher, like
thank God it wasn't college Topher teaching, because I was a nightmare then. So, but that's
weren't we
but
all?
but that's for a whole separate podcast on that.
But so tell me like what all are you teaching now?
Yeah. So our classes start at age 4,
Hmm.
which is not what I teach. That's the age group that scares me the most.
Yeah, I
One, for anyone, I don't. Again, I know this is recorded, so I'm not sure if it's like who's seeing it versus who's listening to it. But I'm a large, tall guy, and so when you put me next to a 4 year old, I look very intimidating. Um, so yeah, we start with age 4, uh, our 4 to 7 year olds, and the name of that class has changed, but now they're called the Stage Sprouts, and so they're just our little, right.
Oh,
It's
that's so
that's
cute.
and it's all about like we're growing, we're nurturing, and our children's theater branch is called Treehouse, so it was a nice branching
Mhm.
of that. Uh, so that's our youngest, and then it goes all the way up to adult classes. Then it ranges from, we have acting, we have improv, we have musical theater classes that are kind of a generic blanket of musical theater where we're learning fundamental technique, but it's in a very mild setting where it's very palatable. And
Mhm.
then this year, myself and 2 others, I don't know if you remember Benjamin Haup and
Yeah,
Justin
yeah.
Gaylord,
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
3 of us are teaching a musical theater auditions techniques, which is literally how to audition at like SETC, like the cattle call style. So it's learning how to put a package together, um, to how to build a rep, obviously
Hmm.
building a resume, but a lot of these kids that are like, I am 14. It's like, cool, you have 2 things on a resume.
Yeah, yeah.
But still learning how to develop that and grow that. And um, it's been great. When I took over, we were offering like 7 to 8 classes. And this fall that we're in right now, we have 17 classes. So it's
Holy shit.
growing. Yeah, it's good stuff. And I would love to take credit that it's all of my doing, but truly it's the parents of the Pensacola community and the surrounding communities are really freaking supportive. I have an incredible teaching staff that works for me that are just amazing, and they're gifted what they do, and they're great at teaching, and they're all, almost all of my teachers are also performers. And so that was a big thing for me, was I don't want you to just know the information. I want you to be able to apply the information, and then the kids can also see it. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of a cool thing too. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's so like I mean like I teach on and off. I don't like work with a studio specifically,
sure.
but like Michael, for instance, he works with a studio and he has a lot of younger students, and it's really important that like the students are able to go and see him working professionally at
Yeah,
like these equity houses
sure.
while he's teaching them. And so I think it's so important that like your students now are learning from you and everything, and now they're able to watch you perform. So like
Right.
what I know like one of the shows you have coming up, like so a
Sure.
band, but like what all performance stuff have you been doing like lately, other than Improbable Cause, like shows
Yeah.
wise?
So over the last 3 years since moving back to Florida,
Mm-hmm.
um, so performing wise, I was in Adam's Family back in 2023, early 2023, where I
Mm-hmm.
played Mal Beinecke, which was such a fun role, and it was really the only role that I felt like I was a good fit for. And it's just that is a show I feel like I could do 8 shows a
Yeah.
week for a year and would have just the time of my life doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just finished doing Rent this summer,
Mm-hmm.
where I was in the ensemble, which was fun. I got to play Gordon in the ensemble, which was like the
Hmm.
main soloist in the life support group, which was very fun. It's a fun show. I say fun. It's a heavy show, but was able to tap into a lot of parts of myself that just haven't been able to tap into with theater very often, and so it was really nice. Um, and then I do a lot of directing, which is where a lot of my other stuff has come through. I just finished directing 13 the musical, and I did Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Jr. title of show. So those are like big things I directed, and am about to direct a show next fall on the PLT main stage as well.
What show?
I'm doing sorry, Pensacola, if I'm not supposed to announce this yet, but I'm directing Jekyll and Hyde, the musical, this upcoming
Very
fall.
nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
So just a show I'm really passionate about, and I love the story. And I think Pensacola would benefit from having that story told. And so, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But can we talk about the elephant in the room?
The
The
elephant in the room.
the elephant in the room. So tell me your next acting project.
The next acting. So, yeah. So I am actually going back to our alma mater of the University of West Florida this upcoming spring, and I am performing in Fiddler on the Roof, which is their big spring musical, where I was hired back as a guest artist to play the role of Tevye. And so, very excited to be doing this. It's a dream. One, it's a dream role. You and I have a lot of really special ties to the show together. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do it now. Let me just stay in the current climate. But no, we definitely like I remember in senior showcase we did the Do You Love Me?
do love me, yeah.
Yeah, which is always a blast. But and now you're getting to do it with Auntie at the helm. How
Yeah,
does it
which
feel doing like coming back now? Like grown as fuck coming back. Like
sure. It is definitely a weird feeling.
I mean
But
it's
like,
been like almost like 10 years since we
yeah, but by the time we do the show, it'll be 9 years since we graduated.
that's fucking
Um,
crazy.
if that doesn't make you feel old, like,
I
yeah.
already I co-host with Michael. Mike, I already feel old. Like I every time he keeps like bringing like new people on, I'm like, these young whippersnappers. I'm elderly. Clearly, I'm an elderly 30.
You can't tell, like, there's so much gray in the beard now that I'm just like, oh yeah, it's so real. Um, no, but it's really exciting. It's uh one, the beautiful thing is like with Sarah Schock, who is the director of musical theater for UWF. So she came in and took over the program our senior year. And
Mhm.
I feel like one year we obviously developed a very strong bond because we were her like inaugural class,
Yes.
but we didn't have as much time to like develop a really solid relationship as much, I think, because of the lack of time. And so her and I were
Hmm.
able to build a really solid professional relationship post college where she was a really big, strong networking person for me and was a big support when, jobs weren't coming in right away and I needed some guidance and help on like what to do. And um,
Yeah.
I don't have enough nice things to say about the beautiful person that is Sarah Schock. So really excited, one, to get back to work with her. Uh, just because we didn't, I don't think, had the opportunity to really do much in college. This is kind of a fun experience, but also there's a professional setting to this where, I'm coming in primarily like already off book, ready to rock and roll for the show. And
Yeah,
um,
you're the guest artist in the contract and like in the show.
yeah. And so things like that where her focus is going to be less on me because it's going to be more on her students. And so there's just a level of like, come in ready to rock and roll, which is a little nerve wracking for someone who's been out of the professional performing game for 3 4 years. But uh, super excited to meet all the students, and a lot of these students I kind of know already because
Mhm.
they'll come audition for PLT shows, and so I got to know quite a few of them. But I'm excited to be back on the alma mater stage, which is, I mean, I love our UWF theater. It's a great program. It's
Yeah.
a when we were there, it was a small but mighty program, but it's grown even now since then. And so just excited to see how that program has shaped and changed in those 9 years, and then also to be able to create some magic on stage with that amazing cast that literally by the time you're hearing this, we will finally have a cast. So literally auditions are next week. And so, um, yeah, I'm
It's
super,
it's so
super excited.
crazy.
Yeah. It's wild that it's here already. Like I found out about the show like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And in your head, you're like, it's 6 months from now, like lots of time. And now it's like, oh my God, it's literally next week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sure Sarah feels that too. Like, oh my gosh, it's next week.
For
Um,
sure. I just think it's so it's funny how cyclical, like circular, like your career has like been going. Like
yeah,
like so many ties like bring you back around. And like I guess I guess over like all the years and stuff, like I guess my question is like what have you like what I guess like what are like three big things that you've learned from like all these experiences that like you'd
mm,
want other people to know, other performers to know?
yeah. Uh,
I know I
the
just
first,
dropped like a heavy fucking
no, 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 no,
question.
no, 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 no. But I got this because one of the big things I always talk about with a lot of my students that have this idea in their head of like, what this is where I'm going to go to school and this is what I'm going to study and this is where I'm going to go after that. And, they create this as we did in college, like our 5 and our 10-year plan of like if you could have asked me when I was 23 and a senior in college, what that 10-year plan looked like compared to now, they're opposites.
Yeah.
But it's trust. The first thing would be yes, trust that where you were at in your life now is where you were supposed to be. And you can plan as much as you want, but at the end of the day, the universe is going to put you where you need to be. And whether that is, you know, you're replanting yourself into a new city to audition and move stuff, but if like jobs aren't coming right away, like trust the process and like trust that the show and the things that you want, the good things you want out of this world, like they're going to come back to you. It just may not be on the timing that you expect. Um, that was a big thing for me that I I had everything planned out to a T, and then that's when everything fell apart. And I would took that as I am a failure, and that was never the case. It was just rather the things that I'm meant to be doing were 10 years later when I actually started to thrive and find the right things that I was supposed to be doing. Um,
Yeah.
Two, uh, always be prepared, which
The
sounds like
classic.
it
Yeah.
sounds like such a dumb thing, and I laugh because if Sarah Shock is listening to this, she will laugh really hard at this comment that be prepared. Because a common phrase that our professor in college would say was like show up and be good, and that is a motto that I have entrusted in my life and everything is like to show up and to be good, and I don't think that the be good aspect means like to be the most talented or to be the strongest in the room, but it is like I am going to show up and I'm going to be prepared and I'm going to be ready for whatever is about to come my way.
Hmm.
So there's never any surprises. So that's two. And then the final one, be open to art and the different styles and forms of art. Don't allow yourself to be boxed into one thing. So like, if you're like, improv comedy is my thing and that's all I really do, like be open to other things too. Like and seek those out and see what sticks because like I said, the projection of my life and the trajectory that I was going on, I still do it but I've also found other outlets of creating and uh, building up the theater community as a whole that has been some of the most fulfilling work that I've done, even if it wasn't where I expected to be in New York City and on Broadway by now. And it's like, well, I'm still in Pensacola, Florida. I say still. I'm back in Pensacola, Florida, and I'm teaching kids, but like teaching these students have been some of the most rewarding things I've gotten to do, and to perform for them and perform with them. And so, yeah, I don't know if those are good answers, but those are my answers that I'm sticking with. And so,
Those are great answers.
yeah,
That's I
yeah,
love you, buddy.
love
But
you.
so I guess to wrap things up, because we're definitely like at an hour at this point. Um of usable editable and
Sure, sure.
worthy stuff. So tell the people where they can find you, like your socials and stuff.
Yeah. So, if you're old like me and you just use Facebook, you can just search me. My name's Topher Warren. It's like Christopher without the Chris. But at both my Instagram, uh, my TikTok, everything, it's all just Topher Warren, my first and my last name. So got very lucky with that. Or you can check us out at PensacolaLittleTheater.com, which is the company I work for. Come check us out, check out what our theater's doing. But yeah, Topher Warren's all my handles on the socials.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah,
much for coming on
dude,
to my
dude,
reckless little
thanks,
podcast.
thanks for having me. Like I said, we've been talking about doing this for a while, and I was like, I just love you a lot. I love the work that you're doing with this, and I just want to be a part of it. So
Oh, oh
yeah,
goodness. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for listening to this week's episode of Non-Ec Nonsense. We're coming to you every Monday on your dark days with a new episode. We will be taking off for Thanksgiving, and we will be having our little Christmas and New Year's off. So we'll let you know the schedule like on our Instagram and stuff. But everyone, thank you for listening. Stay happy, stay healthy. No COVID.
no COVID.